Live.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. We're so glad to have you join us today. And I'm Wendy Rose Williams. My website is wendyrosewilliams.com, and I'm a past life adventure guide. And what I do is help people release the energy that doesn't serve them anymore. Things like chronic pain, anxiety, depression, and also help you free up that stuck creativity and move into those projects that you really want to do, or those risks that you want to take but are just feeling like might be too scary or don't know how to get started, that sort of thing. So we're so glad you're with us, and I'd like to have my co-host Gregg Kirk is going to introduce himself as well as today's topic. So welcome, we're glad you're here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gregg Kirk. You can come visit me at greggkirk.com. That's spelled GREGGKIRK.com. I'm a light worker, energy healer, help patients with Lyme disease, but also do remote and in-person energy sessions, the in-person ones with tuning forks and the remote ones over the phone. I also run an online group healing circle that meets every Sunday at noon Eastern. And I do periodic in-person fire circles on the East Coast of the United States. And we'll be having another fire circle on December 19th. And forecast is for 39 degrees and below. So they're not 39 below, but 39 degrees, but it may be cooler. So that'll be interesting. So we've been doing those fire circles in our bare feet. So I'm not, that may be one tradition we changed. Anyway, great to see you all here. Today's date is 12/12/21. So the numerology is really, really cool. A lot of ones and twos. Our subject today is one that we are revisiting. We're calling it Alien Origins Revisited. We did this a little over a year ago. We had some technical difficulties that split the broadcast up, and it ran, I think it ran longer than any of our other broadcasts. So today we're going at it in a different way, slightly different topics. The main topic, though, is about extraterrestrial life. And let me get this screen share up here. Extraterrestrial past lives as well as current interactions. So here we go, Wendy. I'm going to go right to the slide that you can lead.
Here's an intriguing question. You may have heard the term starseed. And starseed to me simply means that you have lived life on other planets and are now on Earth. So some people feel a longing to go home, which can mean to go home to the light, to our eternal home. Or it might be more specific of feeling like, gosh, I honestly just don't quite get it here. I don't understand why people have the reactions they do. I don't get why there's war. I don't get why there's certain things going on here that occur on Earth as the free will experiment, I think is a great term for it. So our goal today is to help educate, uplift, provoke some interesting dialogue, and we want to help normalize experiences with ET encounters. Because both Gregg and I talked about, we believe that there's going to be more of them, and you may have already started having them. It might be when you're dreaming. It might be something that happened out of the corner of your eye, and you're just kind of wondering, "Oh my goodness, what was that?" It didn't look like another person. It looked like an ET. I just don't quite understand what's going on. And there really is an increasing number of interplanetary as well as interdimensional experiences. It's documented in a lot of people's experiences. It's being documented in the literature at this point. And what I mean by interdimensional experiences is other realms, like the fairy kingdom, the dragon realm, those sorts of things. And there is a concept of galactic family, because if you're able to ease into and feel comfortable, certainly we all have different belief systems, and I very much respect that. But if you're able to ease into the concept of, gosh, maybe I really am a star seed. Maybe I have lived elsewhere. Maybe I have ancestors and relatives who've lived elsewhere on other planets. That can help us kind of accept that concept of galactic family. Because personally, I don't really love the term ET, extraterrestrial. It can have just a lot of bias and a lot of load to it of, oh gosh, it's just one more way of saying, well, that's them and this is us and we're different and therefore I'm scared. All the barriers can start to go up. So I just like that concept of galactic family. And that's what this artist, I believe, was conveying with her rendering here. So ready for the next slide, Greg, unless comments on that.
Just a quick one. I can help maybe possibly make a distinction between the interplanetary and the interdimensional
Oh, please.
uh, experiences I'm seeing through people sharing videos online. So I would say the more traditional interplanetary craft that we've seen are, cigar shape, tic tac shape, saucer shape, even triangular shape. They look like craft. Lately, I've been seeing more and more of what looks like orbs that are moving around, not like craft, just kind of moving all over willy-nilly, or a large orb will be spitting out several dozen smaller orbs, and they're moving around, they're changing colors, they're disappearing, they're reappearing elsewhere. Doesn't look like what you would call a traditional extraterrestrial craft. I believe it's interdimensional beings. Um, who knows what they're doing? But that's just
How
I just
interesting.
want to, yeah. Let's move on to the next slide. Here we go.
All right. So I thought it would help to get some background because there's just a lot of terms in this area. And my sources, there was a nice article in Gaia, GAIA.com. Am I a starseed? Types and characteristics. So what's listed here on the side, for those of you who are listening and are not able to see the PowerPoint slide, is Syrian beings. And their home is Sirius A, home to Earth's ancestors and ascended masters is the belief, as well as Sirius B, the Mer people. So I certainly relate to that one with the mermaid meditation that I did in an earlier podcast, and just memories of being on a water planet, as well as memories in Atlantis here on Earth. And Palladian, the Seven Sisters, and the belief is that the Palladians are the record keepers for Earth and helped the planet evolve. And Arcturian, seen as the most advanced civilization in our galaxy, and perhaps as the original prototype for Earth, which is an interesting thought, because we know planets do have a natural life cycle. New planets are created, evolve, appear, whatever your right verb is there, and also can run a life cycle and can die out. And the Andromedan, who are seen as being very loving, benevolent, telepathic, and having a specific mission of helping bring peace and love to those who were enslaved by the reptilians, who had a pretty strong agenda of their own. And there's Orion, and people from there can just question every detail. Again, these are generalizations, but it's just kind of a basic foundation to get us started for the conversation. And very science and research oriented, which is great. But with anything, we can go too far. And if there's not that heart centered to it, that can be an issue. And feline, those from Lyra. Think of the ancient Egyptian, those cat-headed statues, Sekhmet and others like those, known for being very psychic, telepathic, beautiful grace and creativity. So if you've got those qualities or admire those qualities, gee, is it possible perhaps you've had a past life on Lyra? And then Maldek, which was the planet was destroyed, and was believed due to an over-reliance on robotic technologies. Because as we know, again, we've got to be heart-centered. And there are some questions with our artificial intelligence. Much of it is wonderful and good, and of course, it's all about how it's used and to what degree. But you can't take the integrity out of that. You can't take the heart center out of what we're using. And then, of course, both the Lemurian and the Atlantean, two advanced civilizations known for their innovation and advancement for thousands of years. And then, as we know, things came to an end, and those civilizations were lost long ago in Earth's seas. And reptilian, the shapeshifters, also known as the lizard people or the draconians, who may, again, this is a big generalization, and those you've always got to really apply your own filter to, known for seeking political power to influence human development. So that for me raises questions around free will. So that's what I wanted to say here. And of course, you can go to Gaia.com and look for the article, Am I a Starseed? Types and Characteristics.
Thank you, Wendy. So finding your alien origins. Wendy and I talked a little bit about this last time, about a little over a year ago, when we talked about how do you know if you might have had a life, a non-Earth life. And one of the overriding symptoms is you don't feel comfortable here on Earth, or you feel like kind of like a stranger here, or you feel like you have this distant memory, but very vague, that things were easier on another planet or another place where you lived. You can't wait to get this life over with because it's so heavy here. I've heard people talk about that. People that tend to be
density.
Tend to be healers, and they just can't believe why everybody isn't just heart-centered and loving and helpful here. It's just so dense. These are just some things that may make you have a vague feeling that you've spent time or a few lives on another world. But you may actually have dreams and flashbacks as well. So if you have these types of things, what do you do to pull these memories up and to make sense of that? And so there's, hypnosis is a perfectly valid, and it's probably the most common used method to, in a non-destructive way, pull up the memories where you're completely under hypnosis. If you do go through any kind of traumatic memories, they come up and they are discussed afterward, but you don't experience them in the conscious mind. Wendy, you would do past life regressions. I'm sure you have pulled up plenty of past life memories in your patients who have had lives not on Earth, right?
Yes, it does happen. For instance, one gal, I asked her to go home. We were at the point in the session where I meant we were going to raise our vibration and frequency and leave the past life she'd been viewing and go up to the light. And it took me a while to realize what she was doing. And she was actually piloting her craft to go home to another planet, because that's in her mind what she was missing and what she viewed as home. She interpreted that as go back to my home planet. And it was just this fascinating description of she was queued up in this long line. It kind of sounded like Star Trek, where she was waiting to go in, and then she was like on this conveyor belt that would take her little scout ship back up into the mothership. Yeah. So that was really neat.
Yes. Well, so so hypnosis and past life regressions are ways to refresh the consciousness on these lives. Another way is through energy sessions, through astral scanning, and that's what I've done with a couple of patients. What I've noticed during these sessions is they're kind of broken down into voluntary and involuntary interactions they've had with current lives, where there has been a voluntary submittal to participate in things like genetic experiments, or these people are being monitored, where there's some sort of tracking, either physically put in them or energetically. And this is a benign, this is something they signed up for before taking this life. Is they were probably from another planet to begin with, and then their brothers and sisters said, okay, you're going to have a life on Earth, and we're going to work on this genetic program, or we're going to work on some other program, and we're going to monitor you and check in with you from time to time, either through pulling you up into the craft or through some sort of psychic interaction. So I see these from time to time. The ones that are not so fun are the involuntary abductions, and those will be suppressed. And then you need to do things like hypnosis, you wouldn't do past life regression for that because this is current life, but these do come up through energy work as well. What happens is after somebody's been abducted, excuse me, they tend to have what's called a blank slating. So their current memory is, excuse me, their memory is wiped clean in this lifetime. And in order to get it back, it takes a bit of effort. So usually pieces of the memory starts to come through, and then with some help through hypnosis or through an energy session, these things can be remembered. So one that happened with me a couple of years ago was a patient, and I started seeing the scene where just before they had been abducted, and I asked the person as easily as I could, because I didn't want to say, hey, I think you were abducted, which could have raised some trauma in them. I asked them, I said, you were hiking around some hills out in Utah. Is that true? And the woman said, yes. That's yes. Wow, that's really interesting that you could see that. I said, yes. And then I asked, did you happen to see a UFO during this trip? Why, yes, I did. And I said, did you have a gap in time? Like this is the more traditional situation that happens. People have a loss of time experience. So there's a situation where they'll see a UFO, and then 6 hours or more of their time will be lost, and they'll suddenly be doing something else that they hadn't. There's just this splicing of time from saw the UFO to now they're somewhere else, or they're doing something fully conscious. Anyway, this happened with one of my patients, and as we sat with the energy and with the memory of this, it came through that she had been a part of a DNA program. So they were monitoring her genetics, her reproductive system, the whole situation. So pretty interesting. But the bottom line here is the common point for the voluntary programs. The common point is to make people aware of a life beyond what is easily seen on Earth. So in some of these situations, the extraterrestrials are the benevolent extraterrestrials are here to remind people of their mastery on other planets, and also to just pull back a bit of the veil that there's more to life on Earth than the 9-to-5 stuff, and there are worlds out there that people don't think about all the time. You have anything to add to this, Wendy?
Also, there can be amazing healings that can go on, not only from finding this type of information that you had partially suppressed or that's just now bubbling to the surface. So the point is, it can really improve your life to work with someone to just release that and just take control of your sovereignty back again, and realize you do have free will, and make any changes that might be necessary. And also to feel, perhaps you're going to feel some gratitude for a psychic surgeon that might be an off-planet being. I had an amazing 2-hour psychic surgery while I was sleeping one night the night before a past life regression, and it was via an ET being. And then I woke up and went, oh my gosh, was that real? Because it's so vivid and I can remember it. And I know that my stomach and my liver and my digestion, it feels so healed. It feels different. And then when I had the past life regression the next day, I was able to ask questions about it. So that was pretty amazing. So there certainly can be some incredible pluses. So it's just using, you know, your discretion of what's right for you.
Definitely. So Wendy, over to you on some
Okay.
experiences you've had.
So Mount Shasta, California is a gorgeous area in Northern California, famous for its natural beauty, as well as the high incidence of ET activity and lenticular clouds, which are a specific type of cloud. So here's two examples of them that I Googled. Well, please tell me what that lenticular cloud looks like to you. To me, they look like spaceships. They look like just the perfect masking for a spaceship. And I have personally seen spaceships come out of them. There's just a lot of activity over the top of that mountain. But again, you know, it's your personal belief system, and I completely respect people have different beliefs. And scientists want to say, oh, these are lenticular clouds, and here's why they're created, and that's all it means. It's just this atmospheric thing. I respect that too. The first time I went to Mount Shasta, California, was in 2017. And I saw some ET ships. Oh, actually, that was my second trip there. I saw some ET ships come in while I was driving. I was alone. I was on this small rural highway, just one lane paved road each way. And there was enough room that I could pull over and just look at it and go, oh my goodness. And I was just looking up at what is this over? You know, what do I see around me now that I've pulled over and I'm looking at this activity? And what I saw was a field of white calf buffalo. And I took some photos of them because they were just beautiful, just like glistening in the sun, and they were just adorable. And there's a Hopi prophecy that peace on earth is possible with the seventh generation of white calf buffalo having been born. We're there now. We're there now. So it was just a big deal. So I took the photos. I know they were there. I certainly am very familiar with taking photos with my iPhone. There's thousands of photos on my phone. And guess what? As often happens, if you're not supposed to have a photo of it, the photos were missing. They weren't there when I went to look at them later that night, which is fine. I know I saw them. It was a gift. I was literally in tears because I could feel that peace on earth energy. It was just a really big deal. And I saw white calf buffalo again on the same trip. I went through Roseburg, Oregon on my way home to Seattle from Mount Shasta and spent a night there. And what was interesting about that field of white calf buffalo, because again, there was more than one, was I could not find my the bed and breakfast where I was staying, the Airbnb. I just kept looping around and like trying to put the address back in my GPS and just getting frustrated. Like, why is this so hard? So I finally just pulled over to the side of the road to just reset my energy and said to my guides, is there something you want me to see? Why do I keep passing this area again and I can't find my turn? And they were like, will you please look at the white calf buffalo? I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this field of them again. So it just was amazing. And of course, as soon as I recognized that and did that, and then put the address in my GPS again, I drove straight to where I was staying. So they just had to reroute me a little bit and get me to pay attention. So that was kind of neat. There is a book called Mount Shasta Sightings by Brian Wallenstein. It is a huge reference book. It is hundreds of pages, an oversized encyclopedia type of book. It weighs about 5 pounds in paperback. So if you like this topic, and it's a compilation, it's not written as a story, it's not fictionalized in any way, it's just a gathering of hundreds and hundreds of sightings and people writing about them over the years, and then compiled into this one big reference guide. So it's interesting to take a look at if this piques your interest. So Mount Shasta Sightings, it's called, by Brian Wallenstein, and it's available on Amazon.
Very cool.
Okay, so this was another experience, and I went to the lovely Chateau San Michelle winery in Woodinville, Washington, near where I live. And I went there in the summer for a concert. And it was really, really interesting because I had known for months that I was to meet a certain soulmate, a new partner, so on and so forth. So I went to this concert, which was a birthday gift to myself. So it was in July, and Don Henley, one of the Eagles, was doing a solo concert for his Cass County CD concert tour. And I just could feel so much energy that I was meant to meet this partner. So I'm sitting on the lawn, there are thousands and thousands of people on the lawn, you know, with our lawn chairs. And I could hear my guide say, look to your left, look hard to your left, way over your shoulder. So I did. And what I saw was a security guard. And he took his sunglasses off at that moment. And the moment that he took his sunglasses off, and I saw him scanning the crowd, and I saw him scanning the skies, I saw him scanning everything. There is no way a human can move their eyes and take in that much information that fast. So he was definitely a galactic guard. He was not a human being. Not so he may have been, you know, temporarily inhabiting and helping hold the energy or whatever was going on, or may have just been here on Earth for a couple of days to do that specific task. I don't know what it is, but I saw him and he saw me, and I could feel his energy, and I'm like, this is benevolent. He's a guard, he's a watcher, he's just helping hold the peace, he's helping hold the energy. So I just kind of nodded to him, even though he was really far away. And I don't know if he saw me nod, and I saw him put his sunglasses back on, which really was his cover. Because if you could really see his eyes, not human. So that was just really, really interesting. So I then just, you know, let it go and paid attention. But I appreciated my guides telling me to take a look, because it was just really, really a pretty amazing moment to get to see and recognize someone that was not normally on the planet.
Wow.
I did think it was a little ironic too. I got a kind of a kick out of, okay, we've got a galactic guard that's a security guard. He's in the security uniform.
Yes. Let's move on into layers of belief and acceptance in just all of this, especially in terms of just all of humanity right now. You know, and especially, you know, in recent times, this is the first year, I believe, that the United States government has actually finally acknowledged that they've been monitoring and filming UFOs, even though, you know, back in the 1970s, well, actually since the Roswell incident of 1945, I believe, they've been denying it. They created Project Blue Book, which was a way in the 1960s and 70s a way to try to debunk a lot of the UFO experiences that had started after the Roswell situation. And J. Allen Hynek was tasked to do that, to run that project. And he was a skeptic at the time, but it ended up making a believer of him, and he became one of the original kind of forefathers of ufology. Years later, in 1968, Eric von Daniken published the book The Chariots of the Gods, which presented evidence that many accounts in the Bible and other holy books describe actually not interactions with God or angels, but actually interactions with ETs and UFOs. Which, I mean, I remember this was an earth-shattering book. I remember reading it when I was very young. There was a movie that came out based on it, and my friends and I saw it when we were, young teenagers, and had a big impact on us. Personally, it made me interested in the idea of, now there's a show called Ancient Aliens, which is actually a movement of people who say, hey, there's not a question of whether or not aliens exist. They've been here. They've been interacting with us for maybe tens of thousands of years, maybe millions of years. And what I find that's unfortunate about this, though, is that a lot of the people in the ancient alien movement, there's a schism between them and the spiritual movement. So I will see people. I've got friends on both sides. So the spiritual movement are people who believe in interdimensional beings, angels, interactions with ascended masters, and so forth, past life, all that stuff. The people in the ancient alien movement tend to not believe in that. They tend to just believe that everything is either extraterrestrial interactions or extraterrestrial technology. But lately, I've been seeing some bridges being made in the two communities. Have you noticed that, Wendy?
No, I appreciate getting this education from you, Gregg. What you're saying, that makes perfect sense, and I hadn't realized that there was that schism.
Well, I've actually been asked to stand down in a couple of groups where if I'm in a spiritual group and we're talking about angels and experiences and so forth, if I bring up UFOs, they're like, well, hold on, we're not talking about crazy stuff.
And then you get the same response in the other group.
Exactly.
Oh,
when I've been in the UFO groups and I say, hey, what about angel interactions? And they're like, what, are you religious or something? I'm like, no, I'm not talking about that.
Talking about energy.
So, yeah, exactly. So, luckily, there seems to be people. Well, I mean, we're talking about both sides in this group here. So, I think that's great. I think, it's great. I'm seeing more groups lately, just within the past couple of years, of people talking, saying that, you don't need to make such distinctions. There are, I mean, there's extraterrestrials out there, a full range of them. I mean, even in the ufology world, there's strong beliefs. I'm going to get into it here in a minute. So let's get into this level of belief. And, where are you right now? So I would say the first band of belief is that you just believe that that people see UFOs. I mean, sometimes, let's get to first base here. There's a lot of people who don't even believe that. They think the whole thing is bunk. These things in the sky, there's nothing to it. They're craft, they're weather balloons, they're swamp gas, whatever you might. And there's people who believe that, and that's fine. But I'd say on the first stage of belief, there is, I think there's something to it. I see those UFOs. I see the films that the U.S. military has just released in the past year or so. Yeah, there's something to it. But then they don't think that there's beings inside these craft, right? What about them? What are they doing? Where'd they come from? And there must be a lot more like them, right? So there's a lot of people who just don't think beyond that. You just think, UFOs are out there. Oh well. The second level of belief is, I believe that there are ETs have, So the thing is, they've been here, but they haven't ever visited us. They haven't ever made contact with us and you know, interacted with us, you know, so there's that. And then there's the next stage of belief of, you know, it's the ancient alien belief. Oh, they've made contact and they're here already, and they've got underground bases, they've been interacting with the US military, you know, blah blah blah. And then the third level of belief is this is where there's a schism in the ufology movement and the disclosure movement right now. There's some people who believe that there's nothing but good and benevolent ETs. That's it. There's none of them are bad. If there would have been bad, then they would have destroyed us by now. Because that's the thing. I think Dr. Stephen Hawking came out with a quote years ago. He said, we shouldn't make contact with extraterrestrials because they're more advanced than us, so they'll probably destroy us with their advanced technology, that's like putting human belief systems on extraterrestrials. Like if a society is so advanced, it doesn't mean they're going to act like us. You know, if they're more advanced than us, they would probably not have the same habits as us. And, you know, so they would maybe want to help us. They have that kind of prime directive rule that they had in Star Trek of you leave the societies alone. You try not to, you know, have any interaction so you don't disturb them, you know, and inhibit their growth one way or the other. But then there are some people who just believe that there's nothing but negative ETs, you know, like Stephen Hawking, like we should stay away from them. They'll destroy us. I mean, look at all the invasion movies we've seen since the 1950s of, you know, Mars attacks and so forth. Well, you know, what about
More of the fear agenda? I mean, that's just really unfortunate.
Right. Well, how about this? How about the fact that they're just like on Earth? If you were an extraterrestrial and you came to Earth and you landed somewhere and then you went back home, and your friends said, what were the Earthlings like? Were they good or were they bad? Well, there's a full range of people.
Such a broad question.
Right.
It depends on what experience they had. Exactly.
And so wouldn't you expect the same of extraterrestrials, that there's many of them, there's all different races, they all have their own behavior habits, like you were saying of the Starseeds early on. Some of them seem benevolent, some of them are heart-based, others are not, you know. So that's the next level. And then there's finally the final one here, where there are advanced beings that are definitely extraterrestrials, but they're multidimensional in nature, and they're capable of changing their form, of cloaking their existence, and that their technology is so advanced it appears as magic to us. This is something that Arthur C. Clarke, it's a quote, a bit of a paraphrase quote by him, where he said, in the future, when we meet advanced races, their technology will appear as magic to us. And that's, yes. You know, so what if they're, you know, like I was saying earlier, I've seen plenty of video, and I know people have had experiences with these types of orbs where these things are really just kind of flashing lights. They don't look like craft. They look, I can't even tell you what they are. And sometimes they're big, and sometimes they break off into different colors and into other types of orbs. And, you know, these are beings that clearly don't need a craft. You know, they're so advanced, and who knows what they're doing. But, you know, the idea is that they maybe don't need to take physical form because they have light bodies, or they're beyond our understanding. So those are the four bands of beliefs that I've written down. So, you know, where are you in your belief system? And Wendy, do you have anything to add?
No, that's just really well put. And again, I think we just don't want to generalize, and we've just got to get good information that resonates in your own heart and just go from there.
Right. And to open your mind and concept of what, you know, these extra, you know, like I said, it could be all different types of races out there, all different levels of development, all different levels of vibration. So one last thing I just wanted to share with you all is I wanted to create a resource page, because depending on where you are on your level of belief, This may be educational to you, or it could be use as evidence. If you're a firm believer and you have family members who are not, and you really want to, we're getting close to the holidays now, and this is something you can all kind of curl up, or on a Netflix account or Amazon Prime Video account, and check out some great documentaries with some very credible sources. Many of these people have worked with the military. They're highly credible whistleblowers or experiencers, and I've seen all of these documentaries. Highly recommend them all. So let me just rattle them off real quickly. The first is a documentary called Walking with the Tall Whites. It's a documentary, James Hall White's documentary of his encounters in the 1960s at Nellis Air Force Base with a group of human-like ETs known as the Tall Whites, who have been working with the US military for decades. These tall white beings had the ability to hypnotize the humans. They seem to be in league with his commanding officers and the officer level people at the Air Force Base. The military was repairing their ships. And anyway, it's just a fascinating account. and also fascinating how far back these interactions have been going on with extraterrestrials and the US military since the 60s. So Walking with the Tall Whites. The next one is a very well-known whistleblower, Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. Bob Lazar came out in the 1980s, and he is the reason we even know the words Area 51. He came out in around 1985 and revealed that he'd been working there, and he'd been working on programs where the military was reverse engineering as many as 9 crashed flying saucers. So people have tried to debunk him, and this documentary goes down into the details of everything all the claims he's making, and it's fascinating. He draws and describes the propulsion of these crafts. He has and everything that everybody's been trying to debunk. For instance, he was talking about a fuel, an element called element 115 that was used as fuel for these craft. And back in the 80s, people said, we only have like 92 elements discovered. Like, what are you talking about, element 115? This guy's a crackpot. Well, just within the past 2 years, element 115 was discovered, but it wasn't stabilized. And Bob Lazar said, there you go. Here it is, element 115. Anyway, fascinating. I highly recommend it. That's on Netflix. The other 2 documentaries here are both created by Dr. Stephen Greer, who is he is the founder of the Disclosure Project, which is basically, he's been appealing to the US government to reveal not just the fact that the military's been interacting and monitoring extraterrestrial life and UFOs, but they've been actively engaged with extraterrestrials and in a technology exchange. Excuse me. So the first documentary is called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. So you've probably all heard of the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This comes from the J. Allen Hynek hierarchy of interactions that you have with UFOs. The first is a sighting. The second is, distant interaction. The third is, abduction. Well, the fifth is invitation, where you're inviting the extraterrestrial to come visit you. That's Dr. Greer's idea. So he basically, he's gone beyond Hynek's alien encounters and is to investigating and inviting interactions with ETs. So really very, very cool. His earlier documentary called Unacknowledged is really, really interesting, because Dr. Stephen Greer actually got a group of whistleblowers together. And we're talking about high-ranking military. Many of them retired. They came out in April of 2001 and had a press conference and basically said, we're appealing to the government. All of us have had experiences with UFOs and extraterrestrial life, and we need to stop the cover up now. So let's have full disclosure. So both of those are on Amazon Prime Video. Highly recommend them. You won't be sorry. And like I said, you can enjoy them yourself or share them with your family who are kind of on the edge of belief. All right, Wendy.
Fantastic. Well, I thank you for expanding my watching list here. Great new things to check out.
Right.
All right. So I chose to have two Starseed or galactic readings for myself. And the first one, starseedsunited.com, is just a great website to check out. There's a lot of information there. Of course, you're going to use your own filter. What makes sense to you? What doesn't quite meet the mark? But there's starseed descriptions, there's meditations, there's activations, there's YouTubes and book references. It was recommended to me by a Facebook friend who had a reading with a gal that's put all this information together. So I had an inexpensive email reading done based on my personal astrology, meaning I supplied my full name and date and time and location of birth to her. And she then did a reading. And parts of it resonated well for me, and other parts were like, okay, that could well be true, but it just didn't, it didn't really have any sort of resonance for me or action item for me. It just didn't have a lot of energy around it. So for instance, she felt I had incarnated on Andromeda 6 times, and on Orion 3 times, on Hyades 2 times. Which was, like I said, interesting, but I just don't happen to have those memories. So that's fine. You know, we don't have memories of everything because we're not meant to. It would just be too much clutter. There's a reason why our memories are veiled and are in the Akashic records and in the galactic records. So that was interesting. But yeah, it was like about a 2-page email reading. And then I did a one-on-one reading via Zoom. I think it was an hour or an hour and a half with Galactic Ashley. And her website is galacticashley.com. And she offers those one-on-one readings as well as some various group classes. And it was really, really interesting. I was able to bring in my guides and just say, is this right? Is this accurate? Is this helpful for me? And I give it 2 thumbs up. I really thought it was right on point. And because we were actively having the conversation, we were just able to figure some things out together. So so just another resource for you, just two that I've used personally that take a different approach if you want to do a deeper dive.
Cool.
All right. Well, that wraps us up for today. And we were so thrilled that you could be here with us. Gregg, you said at this point, we don't have questions coming up in the Facebook group. So
I'm not seeing any. That's correct.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. So things are coming up later via wakeingupspiritually.com. All our broadcasts are there. You're so welcome to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please rate and review us on Apple iTunes. That helps more people find us. And Gregg's website again is Gregg, Gregg, Kirk, KIRK.com. And mine is wendyrosewilliams.com. And just a mention, I've got my next book will be coming out soon. Regression Healing 3, Joe and Marilyn. So it's off being formatted right now, and I'm close to finding the right studio to go record it as an audiobook too. So it will be available via Ingram Spark. So it's going to go into wide distribution. So it'll be hardcover, paperback, Kindle, as well as the audiobook formats. And it's got the much more complete story of what happened that time that I saw the Galactic Guard at Chateau San Michelle, as well as I also spotted at one point an ET, a galactic being who's not normally incarnated on Earth. And she was having some impact on my career that I really wasn't enjoying. So she was in my workplace. And I tell the story of how I resolved that and worked that through. And it was quite interesting. I knew it the very first time I met her. And then it kind of played out over the next 2 or 3 years. So learned a lot through it. It was challenging, did not enjoy it, but learned how to rise to the occasion. So thank you so much. Wishing everyone the very happiest of holidays. And I know this can be a lonely time of year for some. So just big hugs to anybody that's feeling lonely, and can be a great time to do some volunteering if you are feeling lonely, and just, make that family for yourself, make that community for yourself, because you are very loved and very appreciated for being here on the planet.
God bless. All right, everyone. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.